was indeed a mixed feeling at the Kuriga community located in the Chikun local government area of Kaduna State, as villagers tripped out en masse to welcome their children who were kidnapped 3 weeks ago. The children who spent indeed 16, you could say complete, 16 days in captivity, were abducted from the LEA Primary School Kuriga on March the 7th, but were later rescued by the military on Sunday, the 24th in Zamfara State. Now, of course, our correspondent who has been there has been following closely this story. We're talking about Marvelous Obomanu, and he's joined us several times here on Breakfast Central to break down the situation report, what's happening, how the State House indeed ensured that there were no journalists who got into the building to cover the story clearly. Most importantly, he also spoke about the chances of ensuring that the parents would get their children, especially on the first day. The numbers has also been a cause for concern. Inconsistency in the numbers of how many children there were and how many that are or were rescued. There's also the story of the teacher who had been killed. And most of all, we also saw the story of the fact that the children have finally been reunited with their parents. Well, our man is back again this morning on a Friday. Marvelous Obomanu joins us. Good morning to you, Marvelous. Yade?
Yeah, good morning.
Great. Can you give us an update? What was it like yesterday when the parents finally held on to their child or children? What was the emotion like? And tell us also the atmosphere as well. What did it bring?
Well, it was a spontaneous flow of emotion yesterday at Kuriga, where visibly parents were shedding tears of joy, seeing their children being reunited back to their community. In fact, both adults, children, old, small, all of them trooped out en masse to welcome these children. And then something extraordinary happened. Immediately, the children sighted the government vehicle that was bringing these children to their community. All of them all ran towards that, vehicle. Immediately, the children highlighted, come and see the emotion. The parents were hugging their children. All of them were falling on the ground, crying, shouting, just to see these children who had been held captive in the last 16 days. So it was, a bit of a high emotion. And to better paint this picture is assuming maybe you have someone, maybe your lover or your wife, whom you traveled for a long distance, and then you tell your wife that you're coming back. Anytime he or she hears a knock, he's always on an expectant mood, waiting to see you come back. That was how, this community were all waiting for these children till they arrived yesterday. So it was a bit of emotion, mixed feeling as they saw their children yesterday.
Right. I really am glad to hear that they've been reunited, because one of the issues we complained about was the fact that they had been kept away too long from their parents. And now, do we also have clarity regarding the numbers? Are we certain that every parent that came there was reunited with their children? I'm asking, of course, because as we've been talking about this, it was 287 initially reported at the time of return or rescue, whichever the case may be. We had 137. So have there been any parents who have spoken up to say that they're yet to find their children? Do we have clarity regarding these numbers yet?
All right. Just your guess is as good as mine. We were thinking, initially we were hearing 287, and then we were hearing 137. So everybody's guess was, okay, when we get to the community, if there are, parents who didn't see their children, then they will raise the alarm. So, but when we got to the community yesterday, when all the whole children arrived, and then the parents were reunited with their children, we didn't see anybody, saying that I didn't see my child or this. So what it means that probably that 137 is the original figure, and I can confirm to you that every parent in Kuriga yesterday all met with their children and have reunited with their children. Because some of them said that initially, while they were taking them captive, some of them escaped. I told you, they left those ones that are very young to go back. Some of them escaped. And then, of course, some of the children there told us how, the principal had died. They said from the very moment they picked them up till they got to Zamfara, they've been bullying the principal. And in fact, the torture was so much that he couldn't withstand it. And of course, he died. And the children said they were giving them food just 2 times every day. And before they would go to urinate or go to sleep or go to do anything, they would first jog. In fact, the little children, as early as 14, 15, all of them were being taught before they give them food, before they go to urinate or anything, they will first of all do jogging, and then, of course, in fact, they were telling us that the human treatment they faced was so much, and that is why some of them were crying that, wow, is this a miracle that finally they have left their captive den?
A lot has been said there, but let's unpack this further. Marvelous. You talked about how the teacher died. I mean, the children expressed and shared how the teacher died. Have the press, including yourself, have you been allowed to have a one-on-one interview with the parents? And were other pressmen equally allowed to get into the building and gain access to the parents so they can talk to them? That's one question for you. In short, just go ahead and answer that one first.
All right. Just like I've told you, since this whole, rescue operation started, and since on Sunday, I will tell you that the government is trying to shield journalists from having a full coverage of the rescue and some of the attendant issues that had emanated. Just like yesterday, no media house was allowed to follow them to come to Kuriga. In fact, why we were there, because already we learned that they were coming to Kuriga, so we went ahead of them. In fact, when they saw us there, they were surprised. They only came with just the government in-house pressmen that came, but no other media organization was allowed to, come to Kuriga, except just News Central and then one other media organization, because we had already had the fact that they were coming, and then we went ahead to wait for them at Kuriga. So I don't know why they've been shielding journalists from having access to the children or the parents. But of course, some of the parents who spoke will say they are happy to have their children reunited with them, and of course that all this while they've been in captivity, they've not been able to close their eyes. Then one thing also stand out, that the governor had said that Inspector General of Police deployed 200 police personnel and 2 armored car vehicles to Kuriga. But while we are joining, we didn't even see any of those armored car carriers or the police that they said they had deployed. In fact, the last time I was at Kuriga, at least I counted about 19 security checkpoints. But this time around, we went yesterday, we just counted about 11. And of course, some of us were saying, okay, since we even had the 11 on the road, is because the deputy governor was coming to Kuriga. But security is still a challenge in that community. And again, if you've seen the school structure there, you see how dilapidating their building is. So if these children are going back to that particular LEA Primary School to continue their education, would they continue schooling under that structure that is bad? These are some of the issues.
I mean, you've painted a very sad picture, sad but real picture of the situation and the current state of things. And I completely agree with you that the state of the schools from which they were kidnapped is nothing to write home about. Talk to us about the parents' reaction to, I don't know if you're able to get that, to the governor's promise to give the students scholarship, and as well as the family of the murdered teacher.
Yes, the governor did say he's awarding scholarship to all the 137 children. And of course, the family of the principal who died, he's also going to assist them. Yes, that is what he said. It's a good one if you look at it. But the question still remains that if you're giving these children scholarship, is this scholarship to continue their education in that community, or are they going to go outside of their community to start their education? Now, when you look at what is happening in Kuriga, as I'm talking to you now, the school is still is a far cry. So if you are giving them scholarship, will they continue education there, or the onus still lies in you to find a way to build up that school so that it becomes conducive and better for children to, school? And then I can also tell you that while we were journeying to Kuriga yesterday, a lot of communities have all been deserted. A lot of schools have all been deserted. So a lot of people living around that Chikum local government are living in fear because they are saying they don't know which school will be attacked the next. And government has not provided much security to reassure these residents that, yes, this kind of thing will not repeat itself again. So there is a need to provide more security and also, make these children believe and their parents that, yes, the schools are safe, the schools are protected, because most of the schools we saw around that area have all been deserted. Most of the communities have all been deserted.
And I'm glad that you highlighted this, because I also wanted to ask you what the impact of this has had on the education system within that local government area, to see if schools are still opening and if parents are still sending their children to school. And I'm hoping that you have some time to speak to the parents as well, the parents of these children, to find out if they'll be open to sending them back to school. I want to ask you personally now, on the personal note, how would you say this story has impacted you? You followed the story from the beginning, Marvelous. You followed it up until now, when these children have been, they've regained their freedom and they've been reunited with their parents. How would you say that the story has impacted you?
Well, this is not the first time we're having mass abduction of school children in Nigeria. And in fact, personally, I would say this is an attack on Nigeria's education system. Of course, and in this Kaduna State, you saw when children in Baptist High School was abducted. The one in, of course, the forestry, some other schools in Kaduna State where children have been mass abducted. And of course, when you go back, especially we went back to that Baptist High School, and the situation we saw there was, a bit of, would I say disappointing that most children have left that school and some of them have, all come to Kaduna Town to start their education. So personally, this is an attack on Nigeria's education system. I don't think Nigerians should see this as just a Kaduna State problem alone or an attack in the Northeast, North Central. When Boko Haram started, we all thought it's just a Northeast something. Till all of them started manifesting in different angles. We see the bandits in the North Central here. We see, unknown gunmen in the Southeast and all the rest. So I think it is time that all the whole governors should have, a meeting to discuss how to, tackle this issue of mass abduction, because parents are living in fear to send their children to school. And of course, at the end of the day, we're going to see brain drain, because if children are not going to school to acquire basic education because of fear of being kidnapped, and you heard, some of them told us that they have to pay bandits just to go to their farm to cultivate or, to harvest their farm produce. So these are a lot of issues that I think that government needs to sit down, have a holistic approach, and, have a meeting with the locals, because security is local. Meet with traditional rulers, meet with this local. And in fact, the call for state police should be apt at this moment in time, because if we don't tackle this issue carefully, we might have brain drain in this country, where children and parents will not have the opportunity to send their children to school because they don't know when they send them to school, or probably these bandits can come and attack again. So I think we need to, look at this issue holistically and find a way to tackle, this issue, because mass abduction in Nigeria, especially in terms of school, is becoming alarming, especially here in Kaduna State.
I want to say thank you so much, Marvelous Obomanu. You've always been on top of the game. Thank you for staying true and being our eyes and ears and nose, especially there in Kaduna. Do stay safe and have a great day ahead.